few days ago, I made a build for a deck that I really wanted to try. Sadly for me, Nakama Decks, the website that I used, didn't save my deck, and so I'm back to square one. Since I planned anyway on making a video about the deck building process, I thought it would be a good opportunity to join the two together as one piece. Hello everyone and welcome to Anything Geek. My name is Zero and today I will try and give you a summary of my thought process when it comes to building deck for the One Piece card game. Although to be fair, one deck wouldn't be enough to fully explain the process of deck building, so instead of one, let's make 3 decks. Because I believe there can be 3 approaches when building a deck, and I want to break them all down. The first approach will consist of picking a leader and build a deck around it. It's a fairly classical approach and probably what you should start with if this is a new process for you, as it streamlines the deck building process a lot. The second option will be to choose a card that you feel is cool and or powerful, to build around that specific card. It's kind of picking your win condition before anything else. And the third option would be to build around a specific mechanic or a specific type of card. Those 3 options can also be combined, and believe me, while there are many decks floating around the internet, we have seen nothing yet in terms of variation in deck building. Let's start building the decks. You can see I've already built 4 decks so far. There's supposed to be a 5th one, but yeah, not so much. The first deck that we're gonna build is gonna be pretty straightforward, and we're simply gonna build a Zoro deck. Now, since I have already picked a leader, I know that I can't go in any other color than red. Also, I don't need leader anymore, so I'm just gonna focus on stage, event, and character. Once I have the leader chosen, I'm gonna first start on stage cards, because there aren't that many. There's Moby Dick in OPO2, but that's not out yet in Europe. So the only one I have is the 1000 Sunny. Now this is locking me into the Straw Hat archetype, because it only boosts a Straw Hat type leader or character. So I can maybe play this with Zoro, but I think there are other cards that I'm gonna want. For event cards, I only have those to choose from. Now I can simply zip through all the cards and choose, okay, these cards I can play it, or I don't think it's very good. For instance, I Can Smell the Adventure, which is a promo card. That's a nice card that can kind of cycle your hands. 2 Years at Charbondy is kind of the same thing, and they both have trigger effect and are 1 cost. The advantage with 2 Years at Charbondy is that you just look at the top cards of your deck, reveal a Straw Hat among them, and add it to your hand. So if I'm not building a Straw Hat deck, I will probably go with I Can Smell the Adventure, because then I don't lock myself into the Straw Hat archetype. So we're just gonna add 1 copy of all the cards that piques our interest. Let's look at all the cards. So Gum Gum Red Hawk, very good counter cards. You can get rid of blockers on your opponent's turn, so that's a very good thing, but I think that's the experience playing. I think that Jet Pistol is actually a better card, because the main effect is you can KO an opponent with 6000 or less, and this has triggers. Otherwise it's a 4 cost. Red Hawk is just a 2 cost, but the trigger then is not as much interesting as the Jet Pistol. I'd rather choose Jet Pistol for this, so I'm just gonna add 1. Then we have Round Table. Round Table 4 costs. One of your opponents gets minus 10,000. That is huge.
Force it in as deep as you can.
You can pretty much kill whatever you want with this. Let's look at the rest of the cards. So Guard Point, very nice card too. And Diable Jambe, this I'm gonna add. Not because of the Straw Hat archetype, because we're not really gonna block ourselves into the Straw Hat type of card, but because our leader anyway is a Straw Hat. And we get a trigger, which is to KO one of your opponent character with the cost of 3 or less with blocker. So all around good things. You can see we already have 5 different events, and since we're gonna run play sets of those, this is gonna total to 20 cards if we play this like that, so that's not doable. And to me, Gum Gum Jet Pistol is an absolutely must have in any red deck, so I'm just gonna add 4. Diable Jambe is actually very good to prevent blockers, you're definitely gonna want the no blocker things to cut your opponents off guard. So I'm gonna add 4, plus it's only a 1 cost. Then we have round table, which is a big nerf to your opponent. So when your opponent is gonna play his big win condition, like his biggest cards, if you want to go and kill it easily, you're gonna need round table. And I think for the next event card that I want to include in this deck, I'm actually gonna go with guard point. If we cut guard point, we won't have that trigger that can save us in the nick of time, and we have other ways to get the draw power that we need in red cards. So far 16 events. Let's move on to promo red characters. So taking a look at the red promo here, there's a lot of vanilla that I'm not gonna be very interested in. There's some cards with effects that could be useful, but I already know that in OP01 there are better cards with better effects. So promos, we're not gonna use them. Now we're gonna look at the cards from the starter deck number 1, which is the red Luffy deck. And strong card in this deck already would be Tony Chopper. Also, now would be a good time to think about your leader, which is Don X1. During your turn, all your character gain plus 1000 power. So that means that you're gonna need to attach Don to Zoro. And for that, I have a strat. We're gonna use this Nami, activate main once per turn, give your leader or one of your character 1 rested Don card, which means that you can actually play cards, spend Don to play cards, and still get the bonus that you will need to fetch with your leader. So that's very good. We're gonna put 4 of Nami. And 2 other interesting cards in this deck would be Sanji, because he's only a 2 costs with rush capability. So for 2 costs, that's very good. So I'm just gonna add 4 copies of these. And the other cards that are of interest to us is gonna be the Monkey D. Luffy SR from the deck, which has rush, and your opponents cannot activate blocker. So I'm gonna add 4 of those. We are already at 32 cards. So now we're gonna focus on OP01. And already when you look at those cards, you can see that, for instance, Otama is a plus 2000 counter, and on play you can nerf one of your opponent's characters. So obviously that's very strong, especially because we're already gonna boost our character with the leader, so that kind of synergizes very well. On KO effect, like for Caribous, I wouldn't recommend unless the on KO effect is on a blocker, because if the KO effect is just on a character that is not an objective for him to clear your board, then that character is just gonna be a waste of space and done. Caribou, for instance, while the effect might seem interesting, we're not gonna play it. Now, looking at the cards in the set and the cards that I've picked for my deck, I can see that I only have 4 blockers, which I think is kind of low. So I know for a fact that OP01 has some blockers. Bartolomeo, which is a 2 cost 2000 blocker with an effect of Don X2 during the opponent's turn. This character gains plus 3000. So for a 2 cost and possibly 2 downs, you can force your opponent to spend resources to get through to this particular blocker. Now would be a good time to start looking at your win condition, because if you see the total number of cards right over there, it says that we're already at 40 cards. So we only have 10 cards left to do whatever it is that we want to do. So taking that into consideration, what I want to do with this deck is have good rush capability, and for that the 3-cost Zoro with rush is like the best that you can really have. It's only 3 costs and you have 5000 power and rush, so this is a very good card overall. I cannot see any red deck not running that card because of how good it actually is. Shanks obviously would be like something that you could run if you really wanted to flex. It has rush, it prevents blockers with 2000 or less from interfering in the battle, but it takes a really long time to play and we only have 6 cards left. We're gonna look at Nami right here because on play, look at the 5 cards on the top of your deck, reveal a straw hat other than Nami and add it to your hand. Place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is kind of our way of getting into the deck and searching the cards that we need. So that's obviously very good. We're gonna add 4 of these and we only have 2 slots left in the deck. I actually want to try and run the Jinbei because first is a blocker, so that's always good. And the next one, when he blocks, you may play a red character card that costs 2 or less from your hand. And that would be very good because in your deck, aside from Luffy and Zoro, you can pretty much play everything else from your hands when Jinbei gets KO. So you can play blockers with Bartolomeo and Tony Chopper if you expect your opponents to keep on the pressure. You can play a Nami that's gonna help you get done across your board more easily. You can play an Otama to try and prevent your opponents to keep up the pressure again because you're gonna nerf one of his character. You can play a Searcher that's gonna get you cards in hand that you might need for the next turn, or you can play Sanji that's gonna be able to attack the next turn. And that is gonna be our first deck, the red one. Leave me a comment down below if you think this build is gonna be good or if you think this is lacking some stuff. Now, of course, this is an ideal situation where you can have as many cards as you want, but I know that, for instance, the Zoro you might not have, so feel free to substitute any cards that you feel are too hard to obtain in this with other cards that have similar effects but not as effective. For instance, this 3-cost Zoro you can easily swap for, let's say, the Monkey D. Luffy, because then you can combo the Jinbei with the Luffy, so Jinbei would be KO and play the 2-cost Luffy. So feel free to play around a bit with the rows. I'm gonna hit save because last time it didn't save my deck. Is it saved? If I go to my decks, is it there? Yes, good. Second deck that we are gonna try and create. This time we're gonna try and create ourselves a win condition and let's try to build around that win condition. And a card that I like for his effect is Yamato because he's double attack and that's always good. We're gonna try and get the double attack from Yamato as consistently as possible. First things first, Yamato is there and Yamato is the card that we want as our win condition. I'm gonna add 4 copies of Yamato. You can probably bump this down to 2, and sorry in advance if you don't have 2 or 4 copies of Yamato. Try to apply the logic that I'm gonna use to another character which has double attacks. The Blue Moria from OP01 also has double attacks, so you can try and play around with that if you don't have Yamato. Treat it as Kozuki Oden, double attack, banish. That's very good because then if you double attack you banish the 2 cards for your opponent so he doesn't get that draw power. 5 cost, 5000, very mid-range stats, so we're gonna start with that. We're gonna go and select a leader. We want leader to be at the very least green. That means ST02, OP01 and Promo. What do we have as green leaders? We got Trafalgar Law, synergized already very well with Yamato because the limit is a 5 cost and Yamato is 5 cost, so that could be something that you could play. Luffy, switch one of your character with the Supernova or Straw Hat. Yamato's not gonna fit into that. Kozuki Oden, trash one Wano country. Yeah. Yamato is a Wano country, but I don't want to trash it, I want to use it, so I actually think my best bet will be to play a Stas Kid. Activate main once per turn, 3 costs, you may discard a card from your hand and switch this leader to active. I know that since I have this leader, I'm gonna be in full green color. Is there any stages? No, there are no stage. Moving on. Events. You can be a samurai. That's drawing power. That could be cool, but then you give up the attack, and I think that with this deck we're gonna try and be a bit more aggressive, so I'm not gonna necessarily gonna play this one. Paradise Waterfall. Counter your leader or one of your character again plus 2000, then set one of your character as active. Yeah, that sounds good. Trigger KO one of your opponent's rested character with a cost of 4 or less. So already this would be very good, because if you need to protect Yamato, you can counter, boost her, and also restand her. So she's not gonna be targeted anymore during the opponent's turn. So you can protect Yamato that way, and it's only a 1 cost, and there's a trigger, so that's a good card. I'm just gonna add one. The next card would be Punk Gibson. I'm gonna add one as well. Repel, this might be cool, but we're gonna need to take into consideration the cost of our counter cards before we decide to fully add this to the deck. So let's just add one and see what this goes. Scalpel, basically a free counter, and this has a trigger. Next card, I will become the Baron King. We don't really need that because we're not specifically counting on the leader to deal damage. Beben, this can't really target Yamato. If it would, that would be really good, because for 3 cost we could restand Yamato possibly every turn with a double attack banish. That would be great, but this can't. So just like last time, let's go down to the event and see. We have 6 events, so that's clearly too much. I would play the Scalpel. I would play it because it's basically free. As long as you keep 1 Dawn active, you can pretty much play Scalpel whenever you want, and if you ever need, you get 2 Dawn back during your opponent's turn with the trigger. Next I'm gonna play is gonna be actually Punk Gibson, because I know how powerful this can be. That's plus 4000 for 2 and rest an opponent character with 4 or less, so you can preemptively like set up your next turn and try and clear the opponent's board with your own firepower. So that's very good, and the trigger also kind of add to it. So I'm just gonna play 4 Punk Gibson. The next I'm gonna look at is gonna be Demon Face. So that's a 6 cost. That's pretty steep. Even considering late game you're at 6, you'd rather have Dawn and play your own kid because you have 2 attacks and empty your opponent's hand, rather than playing through an effect of a card. So I'm just gonna throw out the Demon Face. Next I'm gonna look at is Paradise Waterfall. I am honestly tempted to say yes. I want to see how this synergized with Yamato defensively. I think I'm gonna throw out the Straw Swords and bump Repel to 4. So that's 16 events, no stages. Yamato as our win condition, and Eustace Kid. Now, still in green, let's look at character cards. Eustace Kid, down next to this character gain double attack. I'm just gonna add 1 for now. Yamato, no, I'm not gonna play that Yamato. I don't think the effect would be really useful for what I'm trying to achieve. So let's move on to the starter deck cards, which is ST02 for the green one. U Rouge, very situational, not sure I want to play this, but Capone Gang Beiji, blocker, I'm gonna add those, of course. Then we have Killer. I think there are better characters to put in that 3 cost slots. Jewelry Bonnie, only prerequisite we have in our deck is a Land of Wano, but we know that our blockers are gonna be Supernovas, and some of our bigger cards will be also Supernovas, so we're gonna add 1 for now. Then we're gonna look at Scratchman Apud. I think he's lacking a bit, so I'm not gonna play him. Trafalgar Law, very interesting, but only if you play in the Supernova or Earth Pirate, so we're gonna put 1 for now. Eustace Kid, blocker, Dawn X1 at the end of your turn, switch this character to active, is a win condition, and we're trying to use Yamato as the win condition, so I'm not gonna include it. Basil Okin, it has restandability, but we're trying to push this to Yamato, so it could be cool, but I'm not gonna play it. X-Drake, this would only boost my leader, and some will put it right now and we'll see what this goes. So now we're gonna want to look at OP01. So one of the first cards that we're gonna look at is actually Killer, 2 cost 2000 blocker. When blocking, if you control 3 or more character, you can draw a card. So that's very good. We're gonna add this, we're gonna add one. One interesting card that would be played in this deck is actually Kozuki Momonosuke. This actually helps you fetch out Yamato if you don't have it in your hand, and if you're playing only 2 copies of Yamato, you can probably fetch it easier. But also you can try and fetch Paradise Waterfall event that we've added, because it specifies cards and not characters. So you can actually fetch a defensive event with Momonosuke, and we're probably gonna add some other cards, and who knows, maybe there's gonna be one country in then. Of course we have the 5 cost Trafalgar Law. Big card also Eustace Captain Kidd, the 8 cost 8000. This is a good card, a very good card, with lots of defensive options, and playing 3 costs from your hands might be a thing that we want to include in our deck. So we're gonna add one, see where this goes. With all those cards already added to the deck, let's take a look at what we have. We already have 4 blockers with Capone, and we also have Killer, which has an additional effect. So those 2 cards we definitely want. Bonnie is searching for Supernova, so the Capone and the Killers. So we already have 8 Supernovas that we can search with Bonnie, and they are blockers, so they are essential. Then let's take a look at Momonosuke, because he's kind of a Wano type. I would argue for looking for Yamato, and also this kind of search for Paradise Waterfall. I would say still had for Momonosuke, but this is something that you can easily substitute for something else. I can already tell that X-Drake, in the end, not gonna be so much use for it, so I'm just gonna throw him out. And the reason for that is that all Trafalgar Law, even for the Eustace Captain Kidd, it's always a cost 3 or less that you can target with those 2. The other cards that I want to really look at here is actually this Trafalgar Law. When you play him, is restanding Supernovas and Earth Pirate with 5 or less. The only 2 targets in this deck for this effect will be this Trafalgar Law, the blocker, and the Eustace Captain Kidd. I'm just gonna quickly look. We're at 40 cards. Do I really want to do that? If you're lacking the Trafalgar or Eustace Kidd cards, bump this up to 4 and play with the Eustace Kidd here, so that he could restand Kidd for double attack consistently and have it paired with Yamato. That's a lot of double attack coming to your opponents, as well as the restanding of your own leader. And you can also like play around with the Eustace Kidd and Trafalgar Law, but here I'm actually gonna cut down these 5 cost Law in profits to the Kidd, and we're actually 2 cards short. And I've actually went and throw out the 5 cost blocker Law from OP01 in favor of this Trafalgar Law from the starter deck. He can actually restand Captain Kidd, the double attacker here, which pairs well with Yamato for heavy damage. Or he can also restand Chachi and Penguin, and actually those 2 are here because they kind of summon each other, and we don't really want too much of the 8 cost Captain Kidd. He's gonna be a magnet that's gonna attract the opponent's attack, so we're gonna be pretty safe to try and attack with Yamato, Kidd, and the leader. That's where I stand on the green deck, builded around the double attack of Yamato, with the restand ability of Captain Kidd and all the blockers that you may want. Save that again, deck saved. Is it ready? Again. Okay, now let's go ahead and try and build our last deck, which is the deck that I've built before and that didn't save.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
And for this deck, I already have an ID planned, so it's gonna be a blue deck, and the card that we want to play, the mechanic that we want to play, is gonna be the Baroque Work mechanic. I can already say with confidence, I want to play a Baroque Walk archetype, Missile Sunday, Mr. 1, Mr. 2, Mr. 3, possibly Double Finger. So those I'm already gonna add. I'm gonna start with leader in the blue colors. The thing about this is Missile Sunday is if your leader is the Baroque Work. So let's look at Crocodile, of course, 7 Warlords, Baroque Works. When you activate an event, you may draw 1 card if you have 4 or less cards in your hand and haven't drawn a card using this leader effect during this turn. And our other option would be the Crocodile from STO3, activate main once per turn, done -4, return a character card with a cost of 5 or less to its owner hand. Now the -4 I'm not really a big fan of. I'm gonna choose the Crocodile purple leader. I want to start with stage. There's only 1 stage, which is Onigashima, so that's a no-go. That's already done. Event. Now, here we have a counter. Play 1 Baroque Work type character cards with a cost of 3 or less from your hand. Desert Spada, let's add 1. Baroque Works, the event, very good. We're gonna add 1. Actually, we're already gonna add 4 of those because we know we're gonna play this. Then we have Elephant's Marchu, a purple event for a cost of 4. Not really a big fan. Artificial Devil Fruit, we're not gonna use the mechanic. So Sheep's Horn, done -1 for a cost of 2. You can actually engage one of your opponent's character. We're gonna keep it. Ultimorta, done -2, kind of a cool event as a trigger, which kind of give you dance, so we're gonna add it. Thunder Bagua, I'm gonna add 1. Sabs has a trigger effect. I'm gonna add 1 because this is very good. Love Mellow, very useful, very good event. We definitely want that. All-Star Calamities, no, I'm not gonna add that one. Brachio Bomber, this is good. It's a shame it's a 6 cost, but this is good. We're gonna keep 1 just in case. Blast Breath, simple counter. It's a down -1, sadly, but we can probably endgame spare the dawn. So as a counter ability, we're gonna add 1. Lion's Threat, Imperial and Earthbound. That's very good. For 3, you can KO one of your opponent's character. That's kind of good. I'm gonna add 1. And Unified Armada, we're not gonna use in film archetype. If we take a look at these, we see that there's a lot going on. Love Meadow, we're not gonna cut it. That's 4 that we need. Baroque Work, that's a searcher for Baroque Works. Those are very good. I'm gonna keep them. Officer Agent, play a Baroque Work type character card with a cost of 3 or less from your hand. Given the cards that we have here, triggerable by Officer Agent, I'm tempted to say that's a 4 of each because we also have a non-play character here and lots of interesting effects and a blocker that we can potentially be playing for free every time. We're gonna keep this. So from there, what cards am I gonna cut? Well, subs, as much as I like the effect and bouncing cards to my opponent's hands, I'm not gonna keep. Brachio Bomber, sadly, I'm gonna cut it too. It's too expensive and I don't want to spend all my duns on events. We need a win condition and I think I know just the one and it's gonna be expensive. Then I think I'm gonna also cut Crescent Cutlass. Plus we have Sheep's Horns, which is way cheaper, 2 cost, done -1, rest an opponent character with a cost of 6 or less, and you get the opportunity to KO that card. Lion Earthbound, I think I'm gonna cut from the deck. Blast Breath also. Timortar, I'm gonna cut. I'm at 18 events right now. I need to bump this down. Think I'm gonna cut Desert Spada. I'm gonna bump Sheep's Horn down to 2 cards and put 2 Thunder Bagua. I'm all set on everything else. Promo cards, what do we have in blue and purple? We have Crocodile. I'm not really sure this would be very useful. Kaido, again, better cards, I believe. And if I look at what I have here and what I want to play, I have Missile Sunday, which is a blocker. If my leader is the Baroque Walk type, I can return an event from my trash to my hand. Mr. 1, Das Bones, done X1 during my turn. If my leader is Baroque Walk, I can gain plus 1000 power for every 2 event cards in my trash. That would be pretty cool for endgame type of things. Then we have Mr. 2, done X1. When attacking, look at the top 5 cards of your deck and reveal 1 Baroque Walk type event card and add it to your hand. Mr. 2 will search the events for me so I can spend them defensively and potentially boost boost Mr. Dasbone's endgame, while I can still recycle them with Miss All Sunday. Mr. 3, if your leader has the Baroque work type, one of your opponent's character with a cost of 4 or less cannot attack until your opponent's next end of turn. Very interesting. Remember that we have Officer Agent, which is a cost 2, so you can potentially keep any of those in your hands and activate a counter, play a Missile Sunday, block, and go ahead and recycle an event. You can also play Bone Clay, which is gonna get you to look for other events, or you can play Mr. 3, which has an on-play effect, Miss Double Finger, which is on KO, draw a card. On KO effects, like I said earlier, it's better to have it on a blocker because then you can just force your opponent to play in this effect. So what I'm gonna look for in character cards are gonna be something that's gonna synergize with this or improve this. I only have one blocker and it's Miss All Sunday, so I definitely want more, but I don't want them to be that costly. So actually Trafalgar Law. Black Maria, I'm gonna just add one because I'm not sure that there's not something else in OP01. You can also play like Queen, which is a big blocker, on played on -1, draw 2 cards, discard 1 from your hand. Those are good, but I'm not sure that I really want to play any of those cards. 2 cost blocker. Some cards that might be interesting is Crocodile DSR because it has Banish, and on next one, blue events cards in your hand cost 1 less to play. Baroque Works becomes free. Love Beam becomes a 1 cost. Officer Agent is 1 cost. So for 1 cost, if you play Officer Agent, you can counter play a Baroque Work type card with a cost of 3 or less from your hand. You're playing a 3 cost for only 1. That's something interesting, and you can recycle them with Missile Sunday. Also, if you activate the event and you have 4 or less cards in your hand, you can draw a card. That's actually something that we really like. So we're gonna add 2 Crocodile. Doflamingo, 3 cost blocker, kind of cool. There's also the Boa Hancock blocker. That would be like a good synergy in the deck, so we're gonna add one. This is an interesting combo: Kurozumi, Semimaru, and Igarashi. Now that I've selected the cards, if I'm sorting things out, in purple I have Black Maria, which is a 2 cost blocker, but I also have Igarashi. So I'd rather play Igarashi with Semimaru and try to set up the infinite block. Crocodile at 7, which is kind of the win condition that we want. We're at 52 cards. Uti, I'm just gonna cut her. I'm gonna choose Boa Hancock for the draw capacity and blocker ability. At what does it look like? We're at 48 cards. I think it's down to Doflamingo versus Boa Hancock. I could potentially play 2 of each. They're not gonna be targeted by any of my events, so they're just pure bonus. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much done with this deck. Depending on what you have, just cut the Hancock and add a more Doflamingo. If you can, then just switch to Boa Hancock for draw power, or you can just do what I do here and make a split 2-2. This would, I think, work as well. Crocodile, win condition, I would always like put 2 of them and try to reach them through other means instead of blocking 4 slots for big cards, but you can adjust as needed. The Kurozumi mechanic in blocking is totally optional. That's just me. I want to try and run this. Yeah. Other than that, that's pretty much the deck that I'm gonna try and build and play. And let's just save the deck for now. It says deck saved. Is it saved? Yeah, it's saved. And with all this said and done, I hope you like the decks that I built for you today. We've built 3 decks using 3 separate methods. Which one do you prefer? Do you plan on building decks? Have you already built some decks? Leave me your recipe down in the comments. What idea would you have to build a deck? I know that you can probably build a Wano country deck using the Kozuki Oden leader. What's some upcoming leaders that you think would be a great option to build around in the future? Leave me all your answers in the comments down below. But anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. If you're still here, that means this video was at the very least entertaining to you, so please leave a like, it really helps me a lot. And most importantly, subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to never miss anything geek.